And we're live. Welcome back to Monitoring the Situation. Today I brought all of our favorite fellows with us. We're going to be taking a look at President Trump is going to be addressing the nation. He's going to be answering some questions on Iran. He's going to be talking about the war in Iran, what the goals are, where we're going. And I thought, a lot of people, they get their friends together and they watch football. But people that are a little bit weirder like me, I ask my friends to come and watch the presidential address. So today I'm joined by HLC habitual line crosser Ethan. All the links are down below in the description of the video where you can find their channels. There's also Ryan Mcbeth here, the one and only, the God's greatest creature, Ryan Mcbeth, and Justin Taylor, JT, as I like to call him. He doesn't make it. Yes, he only makes me call him sir off stream. So, yes. And yeah, I'd like to start with just explaining that I have, it looks like toothpaste on my shirt. I'm going to blame it on my baby. That's why I look like a hot mess. I'm also extremely clammy, so I just want to address that. Yeah, it's definitely not back shots. But
takes over and people grab one. Yeah. Ryan, I figure you might have a background on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that, look, Iran can't afford to build an aircraft carrier, right? Mm-hmm. But what they can do is use propaganda to convince people that whatever is going on is America's fault, or America is dropping bombs on babies, or whatever, right? They're really good at that. They can't they can't defeat America by force of arms, but they can have Americans fight each other until we suddenly decide that this is a bad venture, we shouldn't be doing this, and we move on to something else. Maybe Cuba. Cuba sounds kind of nice.
Court of public opinion is kind of what they're going for, is what you're saying?
I mean, that's how it works. I mean, the whole reason for information warfare is that let's say that Russia doesn't want the U.S. to send 155 artillery ammunition to Ukraine. Well, there's a couple of ways that Russia could prevent that, right? They could load up some of their backfire bombers with cruise missiles and launch those cruise missiles at the factory in Scranton, Pennsylvania. They do have that capability, right? Fewer now than Operation Spiderweb, but they do have that capability. It would initiate Article 5, NATO would get involved, Russia would be defeated because they do not want to fight NATO. Another thing they could do is they could pay money to a saboteur. And that saboteur could sabotage the production line. But again, if that gets traced back to Russia, Russia's in a lot of trouble. Or what they could do is say to people, hey, half of all artillery shells getting sent to Ukraine are actually going to the cartels in Mexico. Half. It's a fact, right? And have people like Tucker Carlson repeat that. And now what you have is people call their congressmen and they say, don't you dare support Ukraine because I don't want the drug cartels to have artillery ammunition. And the politician's going to kind of go with their gut on what gets them reelected. So the effect is exactly the same. That's why I've always said information warfare is a weapons effector. That's why I've advocated dropping bombs or using cyber attacks against disinformation actors, because they are part of a domain of warfare. And just because they're not firing a weapon doesn't mean that it can't have kinetic effects, such as weapons not getting to where they need to be. Another example I use is the MV Cape Orlando. MV Cape Orlando was a ship that was in the port of Oakland. It was a ready reserve ship. And basically, Iranian actors coordinated with the Arab Action Resource Coalition out of Oakland and said, block the MV Cape Orlando. It's sending weapons to Israel. Now, MV Cape Orlando is based at the Port of Oakland. Port of Oakland is on the west coast of the U.S. If you were sending weapons to Israel, you'd leave out of the east coast, but all right. There's a reason they call these people useful idiots. They never looked at a map. But they convinced people to protest at the Port of Oakland, block the road leading to the port, and glue themselves to the side of a ship to prevent that ship from leaving. Prevented the ship from leaving for about 3 hours. So what you have is a weapon system. 20 years ago, if we wanted to prevent a ship from leaving, we would have to fire a cruise missile at it. We would have to put a limpet mine on the bottom of it, right? Get a bunch of Navy SEALs, Chinese Navy SEALs under there and put the limpet weapon on the bottom. Now, we just tell a bunch of blue-haired idiots this ship is sending weapons to Israel, go stop it. And it's the same thing as a cruise missile, right? Prevents the ship from leaving. It is a weapons effector.
That's
crazy, huh?
It's wild. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, one thing I've noticed just kind of like in passing online is that Iran will put out these numbers, and like obviously a lot of them are fake, like an AI generated carrier exploding. Like I think what the Lincoln's been exploded 12 times now. But the thing that I've seen actually like catch traction are the ones that are semi-believable. So it'll be like a generic picture or an AI generated picture that's sort of convincing of, 12 American soldiers handcuffed being, held hostage or whatever. And the person posting it, it'll be an actual video of an American person posting this, where they think that the nonsense that's being spewed out on that end is the real news and it's being hidden from us. So they're like, check it out. And then they're convincing, they sound really smart if you're really dumb. So, it's kind of one of those. But people are like, oh yeah, like this is being hidden from us, all this other stuff. And so that's what I've seen catch on that's hit my algorithm, are people saying like, no, this is what's actually going on. When if you look for 2 seconds or have, 2 brain cells, it's obvious, just nonsense.
I was going to ask, and I said this in one of my videos recently, and I said it kind of as a joke, but also, okay, first and foremost, let me just say that the freedom of speech, freedom of press, they're ingrained in our Constitution. They're incredibly important, and I do not want them to change. However, the joke that I made was, say what you want to about North Korea, but they're immune to social media propaganda. Do you think that if things went loud and we had a full declaration of war, and that's going to be like pulling teeth because getting Congress to agree on fucking anything is impossible nowadays? But if we did go loud, do you think that there would be some level of internet censorship from some of these aggressor nations or other areas around the planet?
Internet censorship from the aggressor nations? I mean, they already have that. We can't do that.
Like Americans not having access to social media outside of the United States. Like, anyone who's on TikTok in Asia their algorithm would not interact with the American one or something like that.
I don't think so. I'm sure we have the tech to do that, to filter out other domains. But one of the neat things about our press, as much as I've derided the press for being so blatantly willing to ignore the facts when it comes to how the military actually works, we do have a free press, right? And they mostly try to get the story right. Right. So it can only be a good thing for foreigners to see how the actual how an actual free media works, despite it being so messy.
I think personally that it would be more useful as a weapon, keeping it open, hitting us with disinformation, than trying to keep us from accessing information. That's the way I see it.
How so? Can you elaborate on that? Because I'm trying to follow the thought process.
Yeah, like instead of because your idea was that they could like shut down TikTok, for example, or insert something else that we wouldn't have access to, right? Or did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
I feel like it would be better for them to allow us to still have access to it, and then use that as a pathway to shoot disinformation at us to stir the pot even more, as opposed to it's like basically letting us shoot ourselves in the foot versus if they know we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. Yeah. So I feel like it's better as a weapon that way.
Doing what I do, working as a contractor, you're not allowed to really have political biases, right? And when the president does something wrong, I've said so. When the president does something right, I've said so as well. But, I swear to God, there are people, the president can say that motherhood is nice. And tomorrow there'd be people who go, motherhood is,
Oh yeah.
talking about? I was actually asked by, the Digital Social Hour, Ryan Kelly, who asked me to come on and says, "Oh, would you do a debate with a guy who is against the war in Iran?" And I said, "I don't care." Right? The president has made a decision. We need to be behind that decision, and we need to go find targets so there are fewer bad guys than when we started. Whether it's right or wrong isn't necessarily relevant. That's for the politicians. I told them, go get Sebastian Gorka, the head of counterterrorism. Go get him to debate. You can debate the existence of God. You can debate the existentialism of man or whatever crap that is. But you can't debate that there are 200 targets and we need to figure out how to hit all those targets during one period of darkness. Right, and that's kind of my jam. I can talk all day about how to do that.
A point of personal privilege right here, real quick. A host note.
God damn it! Sorry, my dog disagrees with you. I gotta get what he's doing. Hold on.
So, just to let everybody on board here, we're about 10 minutes out from the president's address. During the president's address, we are going to do a couple of pauses here and there when we react to certain things, but mostly we're going to kind of just play it out and we're just going to bullshit over it and maybe comment on what he's saying. So that's what we're getting into right now. We're just kind of shooting the shit and we're just wasting some time talking a little bit about what the president's expected to say. And one of the big things that rumor has it, we have heard that a source at Fox News has heard from someone close to the president that the president might be preparing the U.S. public for ground troops in Iran. And so personally, let me give you my personal take before we go into this thing. I think that, I could be wrong. We're going to find out what Trump's going to say. But if I'm Trump, I'm probably going to have to come out and sort of make the case for ground troops in Iran, because otherwise there's no real way to open the Strait of Hormuz. It's closed, boys. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that shit is locked tight. I don't see a way for them to open it. I just don't. And also, he might come out and say, "Oh, we've won. We're victorious in Iran. We're pulling out. It's NATO's fault. And if they want to open it, they can take care of it." I don't believe that that's going to happen. I just cannot see a world where no one's going to, if you walk away at this point, it's so clear that Iran just controls the strait. So my thoughts are he's going to, at the one hand, make a case for that the war is going to end in 3 weeks and it could be over. But on the other hand, I think he's going to maybe prepare us for the possibility that if talks don't go well and there is no ceasefire and Iran doesn't choose to open the strait, then there's going to be some boots on the ground.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to say the same thing to you that I said to Bianca DeGarza when I was on Newsmax. And that is, the strait is open. Anyone can go through it. You just have to choose to do so, right? And so the strait, you could say, is effectively closed because there are ship captains who don't want to risk their ship, risk the lives of their men. There are shipping companies that don't want to risk the ship. And so it's just easier to keep the ship there. One of the huge problems, God, I wish you had invited Sal Martigliano, because that guy is amazing.
I should have. He is. He's great.
He is.
What's going on with shipping?
What's going on with shipping? And, one of the interesting things here is that we don't have enough frigates to do the job. We have 0 frigates, essentially. And you know who does have frigates? France, Italy, United Kingdom.
So here's what I say, though. We went raw dog into Iran without warning any of our European allies. We didn't come out and say, "Hey, guys, we're going to do this thing. Don't know if you'd like to be invited." I, for one, I've lived a life where I have been not invited to a lot of parties. And I can say it's extremely upsetting when you find out that everybody's going to a war and you weren't even invited. It's kind of fucked. I mean, I don't know. Personally, I would be upset if I found out that who I thought were some of my greatest allies, Israel and the US, were meeting on a Friday night at like 3 a.m. to plan a war without me. Like, what the actual fuck, you guys?
So with that being said, we just kind of covered a lot of stuff. I agree, but I disagree. So here's my counterpoint. I agree with you that they have every right to be upset at us. I totally agree with that. Counterpoint is, realistically, I mean, let's all just, kind of feel the room. If we had told our allies before the operation had commenced, I'm not really confident that anyone except for maybe Poland would have been a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a good point on that. I mean, when you look at the kind of relations that Europe has, they're very comfortable, mainly because they don't really feel threatened, right? They don't really feel threatened by Iran, even though they get their oil from there. They have shipping go through there. I mean, Dubai is basically like little London, right?
Well, here's the thing, though. You guys, we're not going to open the strait. Even, oh my God. Oh, it cannot be. Hard. It cannot be. Perun, good sir, is that you? I do not believe it. If I would be shocked right now if Perun.
I thought the logo would be upside down.
That would be absolutely.
It's reversed on the webcam.
I'm sorry,
that's
Cappy,
why.
You were talking about how it's the Jews' fault. Sorry, continue.
Yes, yeah. Let me continue on. Well, not the Jews. It's Mossad.
Is he
okay,
gonna talk for an hour and show a slideshow presentation?
And
he
this
can
is
read the news for us.
This is now just a Perun episode.
Perun, I can't hear you. I don't know if your mic is turned off.
I'm going to go to the next slide.
We just missed it. I spent like the first half hour of the stream trying to figure out how to get Trump's image up there, right? The live stream of him talking to get up there. So now I'm going to spend the next half hour figuring out how to get that PowerPoint slide working. And it could be like any NATO meeting, really, at that point.
You guys may hate me here, but I'm unfamiliar with Perun and her work. Their work.
I am sending hate your way, good sir. The Perun is he is GOAT. As if he can get his mic to work. Looks like he's fiddling with them. He's diddling with the mic right now.
Live?
Yes, we're live.
Okay, there.
Yeah, we've been live. We've been shit talking you for like the past 2 minutes. You got through a PowerPoint presentation.
All good shit talking among allies. All the good kind of.
Yeah, fair call, mate.
Perun, I would never say anything bad about you ever. Please don't. Please think I'm cool.
Dude, it is an honor to have you here. I did not know you were. This is a surprise. This is like a wrestling surprise where the good guy comes out and like knocks the bad guy in the head with a lawn chair.
Well, then I guess I'll just fucking leave. Thanks, Chris.
Might be Chelsea Green.
Sorry, guys. I have no idea what's going on here. I just saw the invite. Time zones being what they are. I am recovering from surgery, but here I am jumping in. I will sit in the background until I have some sense of what's going on here.
Okay, so
let me remove your PowerPoint plan.
Allow me to paint the picture. This is HLC, habitual line crosser. He was in air defense in the U.S. Army. He's recently retired from that position. He's also has long career in armor. And if there's other MOSs that I'm missing, I apologize.
No,
but
you got both of them that I held.
HLC is outstanding good friend of the show. And Justin Taylor down there is a former Bradley commander, U.S. Army, and former West Point officer type. And what unit were you out of? Was it the First Armored?
First Cav.
First Cav, right. And Ryan Mcbeth is here as well. And he's also former Army. And we're going to be live streaming the president's address on the war in Iran. We're going to be just listening to what he has to say. And we're going to talk a little bit about the war in Iran and how it's impacting our allies in NATO, for instance, and how we're hearing a little bit more about a kerfuffle and disagreements inside of the alliance. So, yeah, it's great. It's really great to have you here, man.
I'm happy to jump in as the token Australian / non-NATO ally in the room then. Good to meet you guys.
Much appreciated.
Yeah,
I like
I-
the Aussies.
I-
I get along with the Aussies.
Australia, it's not really, it's not a NATO ally. It's not I guess CETO is long gone. So just a good ally, just a good friend.
You know, Australia is one of the
Kansas.
homies, man. We trade weapons and systems back and forth
You're right back.
pretty regularly. They're definitely one of the homies.
We do tend to pop up on the arms imports charts pretty consistently when it comes to US systems.
Well, can I ask you, Perun, what are some of the things that you're tracking right now with the war in Iran? Maybe some of the observations or just something that has caught your interest as the war has progressed?
Oh, let me get oriented first on the discussion, mate. Let's maybe come back after the speech on that one. Because
You got
I think
it.
whatever those observations are, I reckon they might get shifted in the next half an hour or so once this address plays out.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to imagine that, in the next 5-10 minutes, we might be hearing the president talk about, and people say, oh, well, we can't leave NATO, that America can't leave NATO because now in the last 2 years, there's been a requirement that the Senate now has to vote on it, and it would be very unlikely for the Senate to approve that because it's very unpopular in America, the idea of leaving the NATO alliance. So both Republican and Democrats don't want to leave the alliance. It's a very unpopular idea to leave NATO, generally speaking. But I think what people sometimes discount is the fact that, maybe legally the president couldn't unilaterally leave NATO, but I do think that he could effectively leave NATO, in that I think he could essentially say, basically leave our responsibilities of NATO or try to pull funding out. There's a lot of ways to leave NATO without officially leaving NATO. And it's not even clear that he can't do that. He might have the ability to do that. I don't know if HLC and go ahead.
Your legal hat. If you put on your legal hat, what NATO requires, what most military alliances require, tends to be fairly ambiguous. It's pretty open-ended what you do if someone else is actually attacked. So the basis of its deterrent value is how credible it is that you'll actually come on off the bench with a steel chair and whack them if something does escalate. So just being publicly hostile to an alliance decreases the value of that alliance as a deterrent just by itself, because it might be interpreted as less likely that even if you do something in response to an Article 5 violation or whatnot, it might not be at the scale that it would be if the leadership was very much, to the absolute limits of our ability. And that's something I think a lot of US allies who don't have NATO-style guarantees will also be watching. Because for a lot of us, the only black letter requirement is, we'll consult in the event of an emergency, we'll act in concert. That might be on the spectrum from we'll send thoughts and prayers to shipments of weapon systems to a US fleet is rolling in to solve the situation alongside your armed forces. So credibility and perception is something that a lot of powers are going to be watching as this plays out.
That's a really great point.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, France has left NATO before.
Mm-hmm.
It is a thing you can do, and you can come back. I don't.
That's right. They left in the 1960s. They came back in, I think, 2009. And they were still, in a way, still a part of, I think, some NATO stuff. It wasn't like they were totally gone. It's just they kind of left some of the commitments and the command structure.
My understanding of that was... Sorry.
I was just going to say...
My understanding of that was... Go ahead, Chris.
Justin.
You, please.
No, I was going to say my understanding of that was that, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that they had the obligations of NATO, but they didn't fall in like a TACOM sense where like they were going to go fight their own fight, but they still had to like legally respond. So that's where the deterrence came from, and that was kind of added by the fact that they had like a very particularly harsh nuclear strategy with like the first warning shot and everything like that, using that kind of thing. So that's kind of where that evenness came out from.
I think you're right.
They wanted
I think
some
they just
of that,
didn't want their troops to be under.
It is beginning.
My fellow Americans, good evening. Let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon. go around it and come back home from a distance that has never been done before.
Chris, can you volume
How
up a
about-
little bit?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't hear
sure
it.
thing.
They
Yeah.
are on the way.
how's that?
God bless them. These are brave people.
I didn't hear
I
a
want to
change.
God bless those
Yeah, I'm not hearing
four
anything.
unbelievable astronauts.
Are you able to play it on
As
your own?
we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month
screen?
since
Yeah, I
the
mean, I
United
can play it
States
on- okay, yeah.
military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak.
I'm hearing more and more
Their
that the
ability to
IRGC might
launch
be the
missiles
ones
and drones
in control there.
dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing in America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before. Before discussing this current situation, I also want to thank our troops for the masterful job they did in taking the country of Venezuela in a matter of minutes. That hit was quick, lethal, violent, and respected by everyone all over the world. After rebuilding our military during my first term, we have by far the strongest military anywhere in the world. And now we're working along with Venezuela and are, in a true sense, joint venture partners. We're getting along incredibly well in the production and sale of massive amounts of oil and gas, the second largest reserves on Earth after the United States of America. We're now totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything they have, but we're there to help our allies. Tonight, I want to provide an update on the tremendous progress our warriors have made in Iran and discuss why Operation Epic Fury is necessary for the safety of America and the security of the free world. From the very first day I announced my campaign for president in 2015, I have vowed that I would never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. This fanatical regime has been chanting death to America, death to Israel
Akbar America.
for 47 years.
Allah
Their
Akbar.
proxies were behind the murder of
Fuck goats.
241 Americans in the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, the slaughter of hundreds of our service members with roadside bombs. They were involved in the attack on the USS Cole, and they carried out the countless other heinous acts, including the just horrible, bloody atrocities of October 7th in Israel, something that most people have never seen anything like it. This murderous regime also recently killed 45,000 of their own people who were protesting in Iran. 45,000 dead. For these terrorists to have nuclear weapons would be an intolerable.
Last I heard was
threat.
30.
The most violent and thuggish regime on earth would be.
Hey, Chris,
free
I
to
don't know
carry
if
out
people are
their
seeing the stream of the
campaigns terror,
president.
coercion, conquest, and mass murder from
People in the
behind
chat are saying, "Hey,
a
I can't see
nuclear
it."
shield.
Really?
I will never
Should
let
be-
that happen.
Should be up in
and
the top
neither
See the
should
picture.
any of our
Yeah, but
past
it's just a static
presidents.
picture.
The situation has been going on for
Let me see about that.
47 years and should have been handled long before I arrived in office. I did many things during my 2 terms in office to stop the quest for nuclear weapons by Iran first, and perhaps most importantly, I killed General Qasem Soleimani in my first term. He was
there
an
it
evil
is.
genius,
You're good.
brilliant
Got it?
person,
Yeah, I was
horrible
just fiddling
human
around
being,
till I get it to
however.
work.
the father of the roadside bomb.
So this is the tour of declaring victory so far.
Iran
So
would
far
have
for
been
the
that's all I'm
past few
getting.
minutes.
perhaps in far better, stronger position.
I feel like
Had
we're
he
getting
lived,
buttered up for something.
We would have had
Yeah.
probably a different conversation.
I know when I'm
tonight.
getting slathered.
You know
Oh,
what? We'd
no.
still be winning and winning big. And then, very importantly, I terminated Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, a disaster. Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash. Took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C.
Yeah, guys, no need to
all the
donate to the
cash they
stream. No need to send
flew it
us
by
the
airplanes
money
in an
here.
attempt
Just
to
hit the
buy
like
their
button. That's
respect
all
and
we need.
loyalty,
Hit the
but it
like
didn't
button
work.
and subscribe to the
They
fellas.
laughed at our president and went on
Yeah, one of
with
the
their
one of
mission to have a
the
nuclear
cash.
bomb.
One
His
thing a lot
Iran
of people
deal
don't
would
understand is a
have
lot of the
led to
cash
a colossal
came
arsenal
from
of massive nuclear
electricity because
weapons for
Iran
Iran.
provides about 30%
They
of
would
Iraq's
have had
electricity.
them years
And that
ago,
money
and
goes
they would have
into a
used them.
bank in
Would have
either
been a different
Qatar,
world.
Turkey, or
There would
South
have been
Korea.
no Middle
And
East,
periodically
no
that
Israel
money
right
gets
now, in
released
my
and they can buy
opinion, the opinion
humanitarian
of a lot
stuff
of
with
great
that.
experts.
But money is
Had I not
fungible, right?
terminated that terrible deal, and I was so honored to do it. I was so proud to do it. It was so bad right from the beginning. Essentially, I did what no other president was willing to do. They made mistakes, and I am correcting them. My first preference was always the path of diplomacy, yet the regime continued their relentless quest for nuclear weapons and rejected every attempt at an agreement. For this reason, in June, I ordered a strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities, an Operation Midnight Hammer. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Those beautiful B-2 bombers performed magnificently. We totally
What's y'all's
obliterated
confidence on
those
the mop
nuclear
that we actually
sites.
destroyed
The
most of those
regime
underground
then
facilities?
sought
It's a great
to
bomb.
rebuild their
Even if we
nuclear
did destroy
program at a
them,
totally
it's
different
like if you're trying to
location,
prevent
making clear
Mexico
they had no
from
intention of
producing
abandoning
cars, we
their
bombed the
pursuit
tire
of
factory.
nuclear
It's like,
weapons.
Yeah,
you know,
They
that
were
checks
also
out.
rapidly
Yeah.
building a
It's
vast
like there's other
stockpile
parts of it that weren't
conventional
touched.
ballistic missiles, and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on Earth.
Yeah, the missile thing is a big
Iran's
deal.
strategy was
Yeah,
so
if they could have an
obvious.
ICBM that hits the
They
homeland,
wanted to produce as
that's a
many
problem.
missiles as
Oh,
possible.
also,
and they
guys, I
did.
just figured it out. If
With
you
the
click
longest
on
range
where he's
possible,
streaming
and
the
they had some weapons
the
that
YouTube
nobody
page, right click
believed
on
they
it,
had. We
and
just
then
learned
stream
that,
volume, turn it
we
up. I
took
can
them
hear
out,
President
we took
Trump
them
better
all
now.
out, so that no one would really dare stop them. And their race for a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon like nobody's ever seen before. They were right at the doorstep. For years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes. As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran
Yeah, but
military,
taking out the Iranian Air
crush
Force
their
is like
ability to
Tomcats,
support
F4s,
terrorist proxies,
F5s.
and deny
It's like
them
clubbing
the
a baby
ability to
seal.
build a nuclear
A
bomb.
wounded baby seal.
Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Twice this
I
past
don't know
month,
about that.
I've traveled to Dover Air Force Base.
One of the things
And
I've said is
it's
if
been
we had done
something.
this
Wanted to be
to
with
Korea
those
25 years ago, they
heroes
wouldn't
as
have a
they
nuclear
returned to
weapon.
American
Yeah,
soil,
we'll get
and I
we'll get
was
into
with
that
them and their
after.
families, their parents, their wives, their husbands. We salute them, and now we must honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives. And every single one of the people, their loved ones said, "Please, sir, please finish the job." Every one of them. And we are going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. We're getting very close. I want to thank our allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form. Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home.
It's $4
The
by May.
short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. It would lead to decades of extortion, economic pain, and instability worse than we can ever imagine. The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that.
The scary part is
We
that
built
if
the
Iran develops
strongest
a nuclear
economy in
weapon,
history.
Saudi Arabia and
Going
Egypt
through it
are
right
likely
now,
to
the
follow
strongest
because
in
they'll
history
feel they
in
need
1
them as
year.
well.
We've taken
Yeah,
a dead
we'll
and
talk.
crippled
I guess we'll talk
country.
later
I
so that
hate
people
to
can
say
hear
that.
the stream.
We were a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the
People
world
kept saying,
by far with no
people in chat
inflation,
kept saying, "Shut the fuck up."
record-setting investments coming into the United States, over $18 trillion, and the highest stock market ever, with 53 all-time record highs in just 1 year. It all positioned us to get rid of a cancer that has long simmered. It's known as the nuclear Iran, and they didn't know what was coming. They've never imagined it. Remember, because of our Drill Baby Drill program, America has plenty of gas. We have so much gas. Under my leadership, we're #1 producer of oil and gas on the planet without even discussing the millions of barrels that we're getting from Venezuela. Because of the Trump administration's policies, we produce more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. Think of that, Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And that number will soon be substantially higher than that. There's no country like us anywhere in the world, and we're in great shape for the future. The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait and won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it. We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They are decimated, both militarily and economically and in every other way. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion. #1, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And #2, build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before. Should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the Strait and just take it, protect it, use it for yourselves. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the Strait will open up naturally. It'll just open up naturally. They're going to want to be able to sell oil because that's all they have to try and rebuild. It will resume the flowing, and the gas prices will rapidly come back down. Stock prices will rapidly go back up. They haven't come down very much, frankly. They came down a little bit, but they've had some very good days over the last couple of days. We've done actually much better than I thought, but we had to take that little journey to Iran to get rid of this horrible threat. With our historic tax cuts, where people are just now talking about receiving larger refunds than they ever thought possible, they are getting so much more money than they thought. That's from the great, big, beautiful bill. Our economy is strong and improving by the day, and it will soon be roaring back like never before. It will top the levels that it was a month ago. I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong, In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force. The nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard that it would take months to get near the nuclear dust, and we have it under intense satellite surveillance and control. If we see them make a move, even a move for it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard again. We have all the cards, they have none. It's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective. American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation so powerful, so brilliant, against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. They were the bully of the Middle East, but they're the bully no longer. This is a true investment in your children and your grandchildren's future. The whole world is watching, and they can't leave the power, strength, and brilliance. They just can't believe what they're seeing. They leave it to your imagination, but they can't believe what they're seeing, the brilliance of the United States military. Tonight, every American can look forward to a day when we are finally free from the wickedness of Iranian aggression and the specter of nuclear blackmail. Because of the actions we have taken, we are on the cusp of ending Iran's sinister threat to America and the world. And I'll tell you, the world is watching. And when we do, when it's all over, the United States will be safer, stronger, more prosperous, and greater than it has ever been before. May God bless the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, and good night.
Well, there you have it. We won, and if we didn't win, it's NATO's fault. Kind of. I don't know how I feel about all that, to be perfectly honest with you. I feel like some interesting things were mentioned there. First of all, that NATO will open up the Strait of Hormuz, that they should kind of find their balls and find a way to get sack up and open up the strait themselves, because they're the ones that rely more on the oil. But then at the same time, he says that the Strait of Hormuz is actually just going to open up itself. So Iran is going to... Yeah, Iran's going to open it up, but I personally feel I don't know. I can't wrap my head around the idea that Iran would, first of all, why would they stop attacking ships that they believe are allied with the United States and Israel? They're going to keep hitting them with drones going forward, kind of whenever they feel like it. And on top of that, why would Iran not just start taxing everybody that goes through there? Why don't they basically a toll? If you want to get through the troll toll, you got to pay.
On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping.
Okay, thank you, Sal. Sal is here.
Now Sal, yeah, there you go.
No, I'll have to ask him out next time. But yeah, go ahead.
I wrote down a couple of things. He's right. We don't need their oil. Europe can buy oil from us. He is right that our strategic objectives are nearing completion. What's interesting is that Iran's main exports are oil, caviar, a little bit of iron ore, and almonds. One of the reasons they're having such a water crisis is, number one, mismanagement. Number two, almonds require a freaking incredible amount of water to grow, and almonds aren't under export sanctions. But yeah, without oil, Iran doesn't have a lot. And then we got. Did we lose someone? I heard a boom.
Yeah, I think Justin will come back in. I think we lost
sorry,
him.
bud.
He mentioned electrical generating plants. That's a tough one there. Taking out oil would be bad for the Iranian regime, but it would be bad for the people as well. Electrical generating plants, we could take that out tomorrow with graphite bombs. They would be able to rebuild fairly quickly. That really hurts the people of Iran. Not crazy about that, but that's something that is within our.
The thing that's troubling to me is, it is true. There's a lot of things he said that's very true, which is, for one, we did decimate their navy. We did absolutely crush their air defense. We destroyed. In terms, but this always happens with America's wars, is that we absolutely annihilate conventionally, and then when it comes to our strategic objectives, it's not as pretty. Yeah, press F, pay respects to our strategic plans, and part of our, on a strategic level, not the operational level, is you need the Strait of Hormuz open and not controlled by Iran. But the big problem is, okay, so it is true that we killed so much of their leadership that it's embarrassing, really. It's upsetting, kind of. Now, the second Ayatollah is missing in action. Where the hell is he at? So who are we negotiating with? We've killed so many of them that it's almost hard for me to believe that they're going to open up the Strait of Hormuz. I am under the impression that the IRGC is probably mainly in control, calling the shots. When you decapitate their leadership to that degree, it becomes everyone's favorite, what do you call it, martial law. And
also Iran has 4 decades of being very well versed in how terrorism works. Even if, and it's an uphill battle for us, which not militarily, anytime someone goes toe to toe with us, you're going to lose. You've watched this over the last 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. You go toe to toe with the US, you're going to lose. But when it comes to the Strait, I'm not entirely convinced that any number of NATO frigates and friendly ships and everything in there would be enough, because all they have to do is, dressed in plain clothes, drop a drone boat that's RC, and they don't even have to hit. They just have to blow up, and then you're going to have a bunch of shipping companies saying, we don't want to chance it.
Yeah, the big problem is the unmanned surface vehicles. That is a massive, massive problem. We don't necessarily have a solution for that, mainly because we gave up a lot of our frigates, right? Which would be the vehicles that would escort these guys through. Now, you could take, and one of the possibilities of having the Marine Corps and the 82nd Airborne in theater is that you could theoretically put these guys on boats, tell them to be lookouts for unmanned surface vehicles. They can fire machine guns, 50 cals. Maybe even we can get some of the 25 millimeters that the Navy has, put them on ships temporarily, and take out those unmanned surface vehicles. That's the biggest problem. Iran isn't able to mine anymore because they essentially don't have the mine layers. They don't have any small boats. But those unguided surface vehicles, like we've seen in Ukraine, that is a big problem. And I don't know how we can fight that.
Can we talk a little bit more, maybe take apart some of the things he said and also didn't say? Because there was a lot that he didn't say that is as telling, I think, as what he did say. Some of the things that were absent, that were called on but did not raise their hands, was, for instance, no mention of ground troops, no real mention of one thing that also caught my attention was he said, that I think he said verbatim, we didn't, the plan was never regime change, or we never planned, and Perun is back. The mystery guest has returned. I think I might have scared him off.
At least for a minute or two. I'm trying to squeeze this in. I'm really sorry to be rude about it. I'm also recovering from surgery at the moment, so it's all a bit up in the air. But I was able to listen to the speech, and I can jump back on for a couple minutes.
That's amazing. It's great to have
He's
you here.
busy fighting huntsman spiders and kangaroos and shit.
Oh, absolutely, mate. I got photos just there.
Biggest problem I had in Australia was the smoking laws. That was the biggest issue I encountered there. Can't smoke anywhere.
I'm not sure how long I'll be able to hang around, but I'm not sure what point you are currently on. But if we come back to oil or the Strait at any point, let me know and I'll jump in, because there was a few notes I made as that was happening. Let's.
That's what we were just. I was talking about some of the notes that that came to my mind, but yeah, I would love to get your thoughts, sort of, on the Strait of Hormuz and what, okay, so what I was saying just a second ago was, like, I don't buy the idea that Iran is gonna just say, oh, you killed all of our leaders, you bombed all our air force, you destroyed all of our conventional forces, okay, I guess you guys are done now, we'll allow you to leave, and we won't bomb your ships or ships friendly to you, and we won't do any kind of toll in the Strait of Hormuz. Like, I don't know if maybe that is what'll happen. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on that.
Well, a lot of the narrative that's come out from them is they're quite interested in this idea of tolling ships. But the thing that gets me is when we talk about, are they denying the Strait to friendly ships, non-friendly ships? Or do we need the Strait? Do we not need the Strait based on whose oil comes through it? The thing I come back to from the economic standpoint is oil and gas are commodities. They are globally traded commodities. It does not matter that a country does or doesn't get it in terms of pricing and supply. On the pricing side, it doesn't matter the US doesn't get oil out of the Middle East. It doesn't matter that you're getting it out of wells in Texas or wherever they happen to be. If the price globally goes up, profit-motivated sellers are going to ship it overseas to get, $120 a barrel rather than selling it for discounts in the US market. You will feel that pricing. The pinch was most immediate on those who get their oil through the Strait because the supply chain breaks down. And unfortunately, a lot of those countries, you think about gas-reliant countries, Pakistan comes to mind, some of the countries in Asia come to mind, they also tend to not have immense buying power. So all of a sudden, they're not getting their deliveries and they can't go out to the international market and outbid someone else to get their deliveries. So they tend to have the squeeze of the supply chain immediately. But everyone from a pricing perspective feels it. So if the United States and other countries regard it as a strategic imperative to bring gas prices down, you need the Strait open because you need Middle Eastern supply back on the market. That's the only way you bring the number down. So the US is never going to run out of oil and gas domestically. You're not going to have your transport system break down because, worst case scenario, I imagine you'll turn off your exports, you'll do what China does or Russia does, you'll temporarily restrict exports, you'll keep the local market supplied. But from pricing, eventually you need that Strait to normalize and not to be under constant risk. And I think the danger there is, I'm sure you guys have already touched on it, is Iran does not need to control the Strait. They just need to deny or even just problematize the Straits. If Ukraine has been able to do this in the Black Sea, and to be frankly, could have done it a lot more if they weren't pressured by allies not to go, Operation Free Fire and unrestricted warfare on every piece of merchant traffic out there for good reason, that's really, really difficult. And I would defer to someone whose background is in naval operations, what it would take in order to provide a degree of security that would be acceptable to private companies. I know from a historical perspective is what you would do is you'd get national shipping, you'd militarize it, you'd convoy it, and you'd accept losses. Like if you want to resupply the UK during World War II, you accept you're going to lose tankers and you militarize the supply system. That doesn't exist in the current setting. It's privately owned shipping, it's flags of convenience, it's risk premiums that insurance companies and shipping companies will not wear. So in terms of what the military option for holding the Strait open is, I'm not sure how practical that is in the short term. And I don't know, the thing that got me, this is where I'll close out, is saying that the Iranians don't have any cards. Their card is the Strait. The card is the Strait and the threat to highly valuable infrastructure in the region, like LNG plants in Qatar, for example. I think some of the coverage has understated, and I think CENTCOM hasn't released a huge amount of footage, but tracking the amount of military damage they're taking is obviously insane. Yeah. The scale of the amount of infrastructure that's being deleted is on a tremendous scale, but that doesn't deny them the ability to occasionally slip an SRBM through to hit an LNG plant that they can offline for 5 years. And it doesn't prevent the ability of, the equivalent of Damo and his mates to get a USV or a drone or a cruise missile on a truck-mounted system and a guy with a couple of binos to occasionally hit a tanker, to occasionally hit a bulk carrier, and make it very difficult to keep those commercial chains open. That's where my concern would be, and that's where I think their leverage remains. no matter how hard they're being hit from the air.
I think
Hey,
that's
Chris,
it's a great assessment. Perun just comes here and absolutely mogs us with his economic understanding of the situation. It's a great rundown. The only thing I can imagine is, can we, we tried the stick and we hit pretty hard, right? With the stick, is there a carrot? Maybe could we throw them a carrot? Because my limited understanding is on, Iran, they very much rely on the oil also coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. It's not like they, if they prevent, to the degree that they prevent shipping to go through there, they're also starving themselves in a sense. So I don't.
That's one of the strangest aspects of this, right? Though, because one of the policy positions has been to allow more Iranian oil to get out in order to hold down global prices. Iranian oil flows are up, and the price they're getting for those flows are up. And the sanctions on the sale of that oil into a bunch of markets have been temporarily suspended. So you can see Iranian at-sea oil sold into markets that it wouldn't previously go into. Now, I know there's a lot of discussion about cargo island export terminals and whatnot. I imagine you could interdict Iranian tankers carrying Iranian oil, or tankers carrying Iranian oil coming out into those markets if you chose to do so. But then you're putting even more pressure to the tune of 1.5 million barrels a day potentially on the global market if you cut that off. So one of the strangest aspects of all this is it's hard for the Gulf states to get oil out right now, but the Iranians are getting oil out. And that's their economic lifeline at the moment.
And the oil that they're getting out, as I understand it, is more valuable to them. I mean, because they're getting more for it because the
commodity.
Right.
And maybe I had wishful thinking. I've spoken to some of my Iranian followers and stuff like that, and from what I understood, there was a very like 80% or more of the country really wanted control back from the IRGC. Like they were Persian, they weren't Muslim or anything else like that. Like they were very different. I, for one, was hoping by now they would have kind of stood up and started taking things back. And I feel like maybe that was what the government was hoping as well, is that if we destroy the IRGC enough, and I mean, the CIA and Mossad love civil unrest, so I would not be surprised if pew-pews were getting shipped into the country, that the Persian people would be rising up by now and starting to take things back from the IRGC. But I'm not seeing much of that.
It's tough, though. By the way, Chris, I texted Sal to see if he could hop on.
Oh, that'd be great.
And
that'd be awesome.
I'll let you know. But with what HLC just said, I actually did back when Mashal Mani was murdered back in 2022, I actually spoke with a lot of Iranians, and I did a whole video on the kind of weapon systems that Iranians are allowed to own. And for the most part, it's shotguns. So to rise up, it's really tough. And plus, I think President Trump said 42 or 45,000 people were killed by the Iranian government. I don't know if that's correct. I've heard 30,000. But we do have, we're in the wires. We are in the phone lines. We're listening to the radio conversations. When someone dispatches an ambulance, we're listening to that talk, and we're seeing emails moving back and forth. So he might have a lot better intelligence than he's letting people onto. So maybe it is 45,000. But if 45,000 of your neighbors were killed, that is a pretty big disincentive not to rise up. That's pretty darn scary.
Yeah.
It's still possible, but one of the things that I thought was we might. Everyone talks about Karg Island. I thought we might be able to take Hormuz Island and then use that as a staging ground to move into the airfield in Bandar Abbas, which that's why I have the 82nd.
Well,
right?
I mean, I think you're gonna need some kind of ground operation to open up the strait. You're not gonna be able to do it with just sending ships through there. I mean, maybe some naval officer could correct me if I'm wrong, but there's just too many spots. There's too many points of origin, especially with what we're seeing with the way drones work today. And so I think that if you want to reopen the strait, you're going to need to clear out the Strait of Hormuz there, the northern coastline there. I don't know if we have the political will or the stomach for it. And I think President Trump was hinting at that he wants more allies. I think he would like to maybe see some kind of coalition similar to what we saw when we went into Iraq and we had all of our buddies with us, so to speak. I think, it always takes a little bit of pressure off when you can say, hey, now everyone's joining on board in NATO and we're all going there. It seems like that's the sense that I got from that talk that the president gave. I didn't get the signal that he's like, hey, we're leaving NATO, which some people thought he was going to talk about or say. Instead, I got him a signal. For someone who has listened to a lot of President Trump speak, it felt like he was signaling that he's trying to pressure NATO to join into this thing that we've gotten ourselves involved in here.
I mean, that would be great. I mean, the Italians, they have a good Navy. They know how to use it. So do the French. British, the British Navy is actually smaller than the force that was sent to the Falklands back in 1982.
Perun, I know you might be a little bit short on time. Was there other notes that you had from the speech, or from is there anything else that maybe caught your attention while we have you here?
There was a lot of hyperbole, but I think we come to expect that. I'm going to assume that decimated is not being used literally, and that more than 10% of these things have been destroyed. The 2 to 3 week timeline keeps coming back, but it did seem open-ended because immediately before the 2 to 3 week timeline, we got shortly, very shortly, which is not a defined term. So I'm not sure we can say with confidence that they intend to wind this up. And frankly, if you gave a distinct end date, you'd weaken your hand in negotiations anyway. The comment right near the start of saying you're now joint venture partners with Venezuela was interesting. And it points to a new model of not regime change, because the same regime is in place, but sort of kinetic regime reshuffling and musical chairs at the top, followed by regime capture, which is an interesting model that I won't try and unpack here. I think the two things I'll touch on that I heard just before are, one, the possibility of civil unrest toppling the government. This is very hard. And I think the few things I just wanted to add there were, one, the messaging near the start of this was stay in your homes, shelter, and wait for an opportunity. It's very difficult to get messaging into Iran and out of Iran and to coordinate within Iran because the internet shut down, communication constraints, etc. Having a Starlink terminal is very dangerous. You're going to have a significant chunk of the population we know from those mass protests that probably do not support the current regime, but that doesn't mean they have the ability to overthrow it. From a historical perspective, there's usually, you have to hit a failure point for civil unrest to bring down a regime. And there's a couple of common ways it happens. One is the regime stops being willing to deploy the requisite amount of force to stop people protesting and overthrowing the government. I don't think there's any indication the IRGC, and specifically the Basiji, the militias that come out onto the streets, they have just demonstrated that they are willing to deploy a lot of force against protesters in order to put those down. As we've seen, wherever the casualty estimate sits within that range, I don't think there's any indication that they have lost the will to put down protests where they occur. I don't think there's any indication that the population is well enough armed, organised or coordinated to fight in a conventional civil war sense. So I find the discussion, unless there is a crack within the regime or the security apparatus disintegrates, I'm not sure how credible it is that a mass uprising would actually topple the government. Because worst case scenario, what if the government flees to Mashhad? What if they lose the streets of Tehran temporarily and they roll back in under an internet blackout and re-secure control, which is a horrific scenario to contemplate. The nature of this entire thing is horrific from a civilian perspective. So I'm not sure what the road to popular-led regime change in a country like Iran would likely to be. Maybe that's because my family background is coming from countries where you get out rather than you overthrow it, because you look at it from an individual perspective, you see what's best for your family, and you decide that the best opportunity is to keep your head down or get out. The most dangerous option is to try and rise up. They just tried it. It didn't end particularly well. And I'm not sure how realistic it is to expect that to change in the near future. Because there's a lot of Basij out there. Out there.
Especially without any kind of real, massive boots on, there a lot of times when there's a regime change like that, like in Libya, for instance, we were able to do basically what we wanted to do in Iran, we were able to do in Libya with like a massive air campaign. But the distinction there was we had some friendly rebel forces on the ground that were down to clown. And, you don't really have that here in Iran, and we tried to have it, but it was sort of haphazard. We were like, hey, Kurds, we've done this kind of thing before, haven't we? we've been here before. I mean,
gonna
are
roll
you
the
guys
Kurds
down
into
to do
Perun?
this
I'm
again?
sorry.
And
I'm
sorry,
surprised the Kurds haven't lost our number or haven't blocked
For
us on their
real.
friggin' iPhone for the way we treated them.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was, watching it up to the lead up of the war, and before the war, you hear a lot of these Kurdish commanders, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll totally do it. We're gonna fuck them up just as soon as America starts dropping bombs. We're there." And then we started bombing them, and they were like, "Actually, I'm just playing. Like we're good. We don't want any of that smoke." It's very clear that they wanted the Kurds to go in. I mean, they were dropping bombs along all of these targets that were not strategically important in the West, in Iran. That these police outposts that you're just hitting on the West, obviously to clear the ground for the Kurds, and the Kurds just wanted nothing to fucking do with it. And who can blame them? So
look at the
yeah,
dynamic there between the Kurds that are in Iraq, but who are connected with Iran, and the Kurds in Iraq proper, and the effect on the relationship of the Kurds with the Iraqi government and the dynamics there. So it's very complicated. Iraq is not a simple one from an analytical perspective, and the Iranians have a lot of influence there.
Yes,
Yeah, and
the Iranians were the Iranian Kurds. I believe some of them were like exiled after the 1979 revolution, and yeah, it's so without that kind of group, and I know I think HLC, I think we're running up on his time here.
Yeah, I
but
gotta go.
whenever if anyone has to drop at any point, just cut me off, and we can exit you stage left. But just let me know whenever somebody needs to go.
I will say, and there's been a lot of talk about it, and you wouldn't want to say that publicly anyways if you are talking, thinking about putting boots on the ground. However, with the boots on the ground, I have the utmost confidence in the American warfighter. I really do. Like the amount of support, logistics, infrastructure, tactical competence, unified land operations that we are capable of as a fighting force is unrivaled in the world. That being said, and I'd like to hope that this administration is better than previous ones, but tying their hands with escalation of force and rules of engagement that are circumstantially more difficult conditions to fight under, like pretty much giving our troops a handicap on the battlefield, is not how you do that. I'm not for boots on the ground. However, there is some arguments that could be made that we cannot handle these things from the air. Like one of the things you said, Chris, was we need those boots on the ground potentially for the unmanned surface vessels, or to, I think someone mentioned it in here earlier, was trying to get the nuclear material out of some of those bunkers and things like that, so they can't have it anymore. Those arguments can be made, but those are only in limited capacity. We shouldn't be there occupying. We should not, under any stretch of the imagination, be there nation building. Like, get the job done, get out.
I think another big issue is that, like, if you look at the actual terrain on, like, in and around the strait, it's not just like, these nice beaches that we're going to set up a patrol base to do that. It is massive ports, huge cities, interstates that go across the country that feed directly into that water. It's not just going to be like dismounted patrols, go look over that hilltop, you see nothing but desert and, a mirage or something. It is huge cities. And as we all know, fighting in a city is a nightmare. And they're important commercial traffic. So if we don't want to get into nation building, if we want to retain the institutions that they have, that means we can't just blow up every 18-wheeler that we see, because then that leads people to want to join against us because they might be on the edge. And then it's like, well, suddenly the Americans came, they blew up my truck, I don't have a job, IRGC's cutting a paycheck, might as well. And then, yeah, and just I guess my thing with the civilian uprising is that, that I think we're giving them, and I don't mean this as a dig on them, but I think when we say that we want civilian uprisings, like, I think we're giving them a little too much credit. Like, they don't, when you're just a civilian and you've got kids and stuff and you have explosions outside of your house, a very small percentage is going to be like, all right, time to go find a gun and shoot at besieged checkpoints. And second to that, they've killed 30,000, 45,000 of the most motivated Iranians that want to overthrow the government already. So, yeah. also something to consider. And, this is an existential fight on both sides, civilian and government. And that's going to be largely dictated by motivations and all that stuff. And so, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Hey, I just want to let you know, Sal said he would come on.
Awesome. Did you send him a link, or you want me to send?
Email. I don't know how to send the link.
Okay, I'll.
It's your Discord.
Yeah.
Chat,
Perun, I wanted to ask you a question about whether you were maybe tracking how some of the second and third order effects of this conflict in Iran, how it might be impacting the war in Ukraine in terms of its economics, in terms of maybe how the battlefield is moving. Do you think that these two are connected at all, or are they very sort of separate?
Who's that one thrown to? Is that me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was asking. Yeah, Perun, if you were tracking that at all.
Yes. Well, it's very significant. So the risk from the Ukrainian perspective is twofold. The first is oil price go up equals Russian budget is in much better shape, and that matters because even if you see large parts of the Russian economy in great difficulty, if the money is flowing through eventually to the state budget, then that can be used to bail out and support various sectors, whether that's coal, whether that's steel, whether it's defense industrial base, whether it's banks that have been giving out commercial loans to hold the whole thing together. So if the money is coming in, your ability to stabilize your economy goes up. The compensation the Ukrainians are attempting is to basically stop the Russians getting as much of it out to compensate for the fact that unit prices are higher. I won't go into all the strikes here, but you're looking at those hits on export terminals to try and say, sure, Russia is going to get more sales, more sale price. So we're going to try and hold down sales volume as best as we can in the short term. I think the bigger challenge in the longer term, let's assume that commodity markets stabilize eventually. Big if, but let's leave that to aside for a moment. What's the pipeline for air defense interceptors? What's the pipeline for critical munitions that they need? Because what's going to happen right now is your GCC states have fired off not all of their interceptors, but depending on the estimates that are out there, let's just say they fired off 30 to 50% of their PAC-3 inventory, for example, and a lot of their talents. Ukraine doesn't have that. They wish they did. They don't. But Ukraine's going to want every PAC-2, PAC-3 they can get their hands on. If it's a competition in the FMS space between PORL purchases coming in for Ukraine, GCC states saying we need emergency purchases to be rushed through and we need our interceptors to be restocked, and the US military coming forward and say, hey, wait a minute, our air defenders have fired off a crap ton of our reserve as well, and we kind of want to restock so we can protect our bases in situ without Indo-PACOM having a fit. Who wins? Who wins in the priority resupply race? And I'm just saying it might be suggested from the outside looking in that the pecking order is probably often going to be US military first, allies who are in the focus in the moment with high capacity to pay second, and then work your way down the list. So no, Switzerland's not getting their Patriots anytime soon. The question now is, will the thousands of interceptors have to restock the Gulf and the US military before Ukraine can get it, even if the Germans or various European states are willing to put up the money? That's my question.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's concerning thinking about how we're going to divvy up the Patriot interceptors at this point. Those are really great points, Perun. If you guys are just joining now, you don't have to donate any money. Just hit the like button and go follow these fellows. You all know them already. You know Perun's channel on YouTube. Perun, he told me that he's going to do a face reveal at the end of this stream, so be sure to wait.
Not a chance, mate. Thank you.
Well, I will say on the benefit of the interceptors, and I'll leave you guys with this because I got to get ready to pop smoke. When it comes to the interceptors, we've been screaming for a long time, pretty much since the Ukraine war kicked off. Because like when Ukraine kicked off, I don't know if you guys know this, but we had like warehouses full of old PAC-2s that we couldn't even use anymore because they were past their shelf life. And we would use them during developmental and operational tests out at White Sands. Like we would fire expired missiles pretty regularly. Sometimes we would get a new one, for a specific test, but whatever. Ukraine burned through a lot of that. And that's because, if Ukraine pays us $1 for a missile that we're just going to fire off anyways, hey, that's $1 made. That's $1 earned, right? So we were giving them to them super cheap or, just free because we wanted to see what our system capabilities were. Now we have scaled up. Originally, I think it was 2 years into Ukraine, they were talking about they wanted like 500 interceptors a year, and now they're talking about over 2,000, and some estimates I've read are around 5 or 8,000. I don't know how we're going to scale up that far. I know that Huntsville has pretty much become Silicon Valley for warfare, and they're building as fast as they possibly can out there. But you're right; it is absolutely going to take time. And we're the primary manufacturer of these things. There is some places in Europe that do make them, though.
Another economic question that I had I have trouble with numbers and math and statistics and all of those fancy things. So I'm glad that I have some people here who are a little more versed in this. But so I hear things like, well, Ukraine is destroying something like 40% of Russia's oil export capacity. So is that an offset in terms of like how okay, oil prices are going up a lot right now, and Russia's making more off of that. But is there an offset in terms of the damage that has been done to their oil recently with increased intelligence sharing? And also, I know I'm throwing a lot out there, but also I heard that with turning off Starlink to the Russian forces, I had like a conspiracy theory driven idea where you put all the crazy thoughts on the map and you're like, hey, are these connected? I feel like maybe the decision to turn off Starlink was made purposefully right before the war in Iran was launched as a way to limit the need for Ukraine's burning through interceptors. So yeah, just throwing all that out there if anyone wants to pick up where my word salad left off.
I think the interceptor ramp-up point is correct. I think the interceptor ramp-up point is correct. So the numbers I remember is, I think it was 500 baseline, 650 is about current state, I think a bit north of that now. 2,000 is the objective I've heard for near future. So let's assume you get to the 2,000 number late 2020s. If you can exhaust 1,500, 2,000 PAC-3s in 16 to 20 days of intense air defense work in the Middle East, that still implies that once you get to that ramp point, it's going to take a year of production just to fill what was expended. And the gap that I think is often missed, I talked about this recently, is it's not just refilling what's been spent, it's that everyone is now revising up their expectations of what an acceptable reserve level is in terms of how many interceptors you need on hand, what your capabilities need to be. Compare German ground-based air defenses now and where they're going to where they were in 2020, night and day, completely different investment level, completely different stockpile. So it's going to take a time, and the supply squeeze that's most concerning is 2026, 2027. From a Ukrainian perspective. They will integrate more European systems, anything that's based on ASTA, so SAMP-TNG. NASAMS is great, can't shoot down ballistic missiles, but there's a lot of AMRAAM and AIM-9 out there. That's the reason it's as valuable as it is. IRIS-T, that's been scaled up as well. So they'll make do with what they've got, but that's the Ukrainian story from the beginning, right? Make do with what you've got or what you can get your hands on. Starlink was helpful mostly in the sense that in the air defense sense, in that it limited Russia's ability to cheaply make an accurate, retargetable, long-range attack drone, although they do have some alternative options there. In terms of the offset, and then I'll shut up and let the rest of the others come in. It is an offset, but it's not a linear offset. If I take 40% of your export capacity offline, you don't lose 40% of your revenue. You'll be able to redirect some by alternative lines. You'll have some slack capacity. This was a big thing with Russia's refineries. Russia had a lot of slack in its refining sector. So if I knock 40% out, they might only need 10% of that to make maximum sales. And they'll compensate for the rest by delaying maintenance and maybe skipping out on some safety protocols and cutting things around edges. So you can't do that forever. But it's just important to remember when we see price doubles and Ukraine halves exports from Russia, Russia is not at net even from that. They have some slack, they have some workarounds. So it's hurting, it's compensating, but it can't take away from the fact that oil is now more expensive and some of the sanctions have been temporarily, well, we'll see, temporarily paused at least for the moment.
I'm going to just jump in real quick and say, I'll see you guys later. I got to take off. So thank you so much for having me, Chris. Thank you, everybody else.
Thanks for joining, brother. Take care.
We should introduce Sal, but I will say this regarding economics. I know that Iran or Russia changed their tax structure so that they get oil companies get taxed when the oil leaves the ground, not when it actually gets shipped out. So destroying 40% of their capacity is bad, but it doesn't necessarily help the Russian government. But Sal, my God,
this is one of the rob Peter to pay Paul things, though, right? Because Russia's very good at shuffling costs around. If your oil company is state-owned, your arms producers are state-owned, your banks are state-owned, and they're all interacting with each other, then if your oil company is making less money, even if they're making more money, even if they're paying fewer taxes, that's now basic capital the government can raid later or doesn't have to bail out later. If the arms sector makes more money, they don't need as many bailouts from the state banks, which don't need as much support from the state budget. So the Russian economy is very much a rob Peter to pay Peter scenario. If someone in the system does well, it can potentially be redirected somewhere else. If everyone is doing badly, that's where you get the danger of more catastrophic failures and breakdowns. Anyway, Sal is here, and this is a shipping-centric topic, so let me throw over to the expert.
We're very lucky to have Sal here with us. Sal, of course, has a PhD in military and naval history from the University of Alabama, served in the Merchant Marine, and he was a professor of history and engineering at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy for over 17 years. The man is a GOAT, a legend. We have many legends here with us today, but yeah, very excited to have you here. Sal, thank you for joining us, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm not a legend, but I appreciate it. It's very nice of you guys to say that.
So something that we've been tracking, we were listening to the president's speech just before, and I'm not sure if you got a chance to catch what he said.
I did. I watched it just before.
Was there one of the first things that stood out to me was he said that NATO should open up the strait, first of all, and second of all, actually they don't need to open it because Iran's going to open it themselves anyway. So I guess I just wanted to see what stood out to you in the president's speech. What do you make of it, sir?
Well, I think the big thing, I mean, he talked about it opening naturally. I don't think it's going to open naturally at all. I think Iran sees an opportunity here to control the strait and more importantly, to get money from the strait. I mean, the idea of being able to get a toll of $2 million, I'm not sure if it's one way or both ways, that's going to generate revenue for them. It's a very strange conflict where Iran has been the only nation able to freely move oil in and out of the Gulf. I mean, they're right now loading 5 tankers up at Karg Island. I mean, they've been doing this consistently. And with the U.S., basically removing sanctions against Iranian oil, yeah, it lowers the price of the Iranian oil, but they're still getting the oil out. And matter of fact, they're the only ones moving freely through it. And they have other nations kind of really at their whim. I mean, you actually had 2 Chinese container ships of Chinese Overseas Shipping Company, the biggest shipping company in the world, turn around and go back around and now has come out through the other way. And so this has been just an amazing thing to watch. I mean, their control of the Strait of Hormuz has been impressive. Now, listen, I worked with the Navy for many years. We all knew that if there's a conflict, the Iranians are going to execute Plan 1 is interdict the Strait of Hormuz. But I mean, the plan was to fight that, not allow this to continue on. And it's a lot of interesting arguments why the military isn't doing anything. Understand that they're doing other missions, and it's hard to do all these things concurrently with the force structure they have in place and lack of allies. I think the message from the Trump administration has been convoluted, to say the least. We're going to do it. We're not going to do it. We're going to get the allies to do it. I mean, in the same speech, he talks about it opening naturally, and at the same time, he's telling allies to go open it, go take it, and go get it. At the same time, he's talking about us doing military operations. So I can tell you right now, shipping companies are not going to be moving through the strait until they hear something. I literally just talked to someone who just came off one of the U.S. ships today, or yesterday, excuse me. So I was talking to him today, and he said, listen, it's confusion out there. We don't know what's happening out there. It's we're not getting messages from the military. We're not getting directed from anything. He said the saving grace out there is the UAE. UAE is the only one providing protection out there for him. That is the one thing they said. Under the umbrella of the UAE is probably the best place to operate in and around the area right now because they provide the best protection for shipping. Their defense structure is such, and then their interceptors are probably better. The ships up the Gulf over at Kuwait and Iraq are extremely exposed, and so right now off the UAE is the best place to be.
It's the best place to be in terms of knowing what's going on.
No, for shipping. For if you're stuck in the Persian Gulf, that's where you kind of basically there's anchorages up and around the area.
Got it.
They're running, with the ships that are stuck inside. Because I mean, again, one of the things that the president can say is okay, we're not involved in the Persian Gulf, but we are. We got 5 ships, U.S. ships, stuck in there right now that can't get out, and we do import some oil out of it. I mean, 250 million barrels a year come out of the Persian Gulf, and we can ignore it all we want, but I got to tell you, it's raising the cost of global shipping. It's raising the cost of fuel oil. And the impacts we've seen haven't really hit yet in areas like fertilizer, helium, sulfur, liquefied natural gas, liquefied petroleum gas. I mean, right now, the last 4 oil tankers from the Persian Gulf are hitting Australia. The last ones are going to hit England this week. Then you hit the bubble. Then you don't have any of them coming in behind it. That's going to be when the trouble appears in the system, and then that's the issue we're going to see. We've seen gas prices rise in the United States, but they're doing everything they can to keep those gas prices low. I mean, waiving the Jones Act, basically open up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, doing everything they can to minimize it. But what we're going to see here is even what we do is not going to be enough to stop the rise in fuel costs here in the United States.
Right, which is why I feel like there's no other option but to send ground troops. And people are going to say this is a massive cope, but what I think it is like sometimes it pays to be really incompetent. I think it's probably a good thing we didn't have a massive amount of ground troops already pre-positioned inside of the Middle East like we did prior to the war in Iraq, where we just like, hey, here's 200,000 bros in Saudi Arabia and they're going to go into Iraq. Because Iraq didn't have like a massive missile capability, but if we had 100,000, 20,000 troops just stationed out there in makeshift facilities right when we hit Iran, I think all those ballistic missiles would have killed a lot more soldiers. I think they're bringing them in now, and I think they're going to do a ground operation of some kind. Because let me ask you something, Sal. Like, where do we go from here? Because if we don't open up the Strait of Hormuz with ground troops, Iran's just going to toll everybody, and they're going to continue to hit these U.S. ships that you mentioned that are in the Persian Gulf. So, I mean, am I crazy? Am I taking crazy pills?
No, I mean, what would happen is I mean, the Iranians would basically exert control, kind of like the Houthis exerted control over the Red Sea. And we saw the Houthis didn't exactly have the best targeting information in the world. I mean, they sat there and said they were targeting just U.S., UK, and Israeli ships. And about 40% of the 124 ships they targeted were connected to the U.S., UK, and Israel. So it was pretty much, they shot at what they wanted to shoot at. And what that's going to do is drive the insurance up. I mean, we saw this during the tanker war in the 80s. The strait was open, but I mean, we had the Iraqis and the Iranians throwing missiles and bombs and mines at each other. We saw the war risk insurance go from almost nothing to 5 to 10%. We're just going to pay more. I mean, that's the problem, is we're just going to generate more money to have to go through. The Iranians are going to be able to generate wealth, not just through the export of their own oil, but through basically creating this service through the Persian Gulf. And they're surrendering that. The use of U.S. military forces to open the strait. The problem I have with opening the strait is this: the strait's only one part of the problem. I've sailed the Persian Gulf before. When you sail up the Persian Gulf, you're always within 100 miles of Iran. Iran's always over your right shoulder as you steam up the strait. It's right there. I mean, you can't get away from it. And so even once you get inside the strait, you've got to deal with 500 miles of the Persian Gulf. When we did the escorts in 87, 88, we had to go all the way from Kuwait to Oman, 600 miles. It's a long hurdle to go out. And usually you have anywhere, about 130, 140 ships a day going through the Persian Gulf. There's no way to escort them. There's no way to do escorts in that volume at all. I mean, there's no capability for that.
Haley, I kind of have a question for you, if I can toss that out. Is that okay, Chris?
Oh, absolutely, good sir.
So, Sal, what are these merchant mariners who are on these ships? What are they going through right now? Are they getting paid extra combat pay? Do they have internet, or are they essentially on MCON right now where they can't transmit? Like, what's going on with these merchant mariners right now? What are they?
So I'll give you. I mean, there's about 3,200 ships in the Persian Gulf. Everything from tugboats to super tankers. About 20,000 mariners, and these are from different countries from around the world. There's Americans in there, but there's the large majority of Filipinos, Indians, Indonesians, Chinese, Russians, Ukrainians. I mean, it's a mix of everything. So biggest thing, number one, is boredom. They're bored out of their mind because they're not moving cargo, and so they're bored. Second thing, their lack is really information. So they're depends on where they're at. I mean, some of them have been told to basically find a place and hunker down. Ports aren't letting them all in because ports don't want a lot of attention, so they've got them out at anchorages. So ships are trying to find anchorages, and there's a couple of them that run all up there. There's some off Kuwait and Iraq. There's some off Bahrain. There's some off Saudi Arabia, some off Qatar, and then these ones off UAE. So they're doing that. They're running low on food and fuel. I mean, fuel they're burning through. They're burning through their food, too. I mean, it's 25 man crew on board. They're used to being in port at least once a month, and getting fresh stores and everything. So they're running low on that. They're not making water because, number one, you don't want to make water in the Persian Gulf because the water is nasty to begin with. Second, you can't make water because you got to be steaming underway to create the heat you need to make water. And most of these ships aren't steaming because they don't want to burn the fuel. So they're running low on water. They're trying to get stores out to them. It's difficult. I can tell you some of the, I've been talking to mariners out there. One of the ones they got was one of my favorite ones is they got contacted by the military. It's like, hey, we want you to send your position every day. It's like, well, how do you want us to send it to you? Well, just email it to us. It's like, really? It's like, that's the way you want us to send it to you? Is Microsoft Outlook secure for us to send you our position? Because one of the things that was not done before the action took place is they pulled out all the Navy and Coast Guard boats. Every Navy and Coast Guard ship has been pulled out. I mean, we've seen the Coast Guard cutters. There were 6 in Bahrain. They're in Singapore now. We saw the Navy ships pulled out. They didn't pull these poor guys out. And one of the things they didn't do was put on board a what they call a strategic sea lift officer, an SSO, with secure communications. It's the one thing they didn't do. So there's not really a secure communication. They got sat phones, so they can use sat phones to do this, but they are not getting the love they feel from military right now. They feel like, well, wait a minute, when the Navy and Coast Guard left, they could have given us warning. They could have told us, and we could have sailed out with you. We could have just left. We didn't have to be here. And I had an argument with a naval officer not too long ago. He called me and he goes, you really shouldn't say that. It's like, if we told the commercial ships to leave, that would have given away the plan. It's like, really? It's like, I think when the Navy destroyers and the Coast Guard cutters sailed out of the Strait of Hormuz, it kind of gave the plan away right there that you were leaving. So it's not feeling good blood right now. I can tell you that between my merchant marine brethren.
This is why you invite Sal.
I don't know why. I have no idea why.
Getting a masterclass here between all of you guys. I appreciate everybody's insight. Yeah. It does seem a little bit like we didn't have a contingency, like a what do you call it? A plan B. It seems like we ran into this thing assuming that it was going to go one way, that the regime was just going to topple very quickly, and then there wasn't going to even really need to be a concern about the Strait of Hormuz. And now we might be looking at down the barrel of a situation where Iran walks away from this thing battered, badly beaten up conventionally, but strategically walking away almost with like the prize, the belle of the ball here.
I've made this argument, Chris, that one of the things I said is, listen, there are plans for what you do with the Strait of Hormuz. Military's had these forever. I mean, I was military 90s, and we had plans then what to do. The problem was, I think they looked at what happened in June, and they saw this, and they saw a dip in the traffic through the straits, and it came right back up. And they sat there and said, okay, we're going to have a little bit of a dip, and we'll fix this. Because you understand what stopped the ships going through when February 28th happened. What stopped the ships going through is the ships themselves. They sat there and said, listen, we got to stop because our war risk insurance doesn't cover everything. We're worried that more ships are going to get hit than what we did. Because understand, ships insure themselves. It's actually pools of shipping companies that form their insurance clubs. And so they sat there and said, hang on a second, if we sail through the strait and 5 ships get hit, we don't have the money put aside for this. So let's stop. Let's get the insurance figured out. When President Trump talked about putting $20 billion up for insurance, number one, he said that 2 weeks ago. The money still isn't put aside yet. That should have been there day one. If that was there day one, if Sal's charge of shipping in the United States, which is the worst thing ever of an idea. But if I was in charge, one of the things I would have said is, number one is I would have gotten every major shipping firm on the phone that day and sit there and say, okay, I got $20 billion in war risk insurance for you. Keep the ships moving. Don't stop. You're going to get hit. There's going to be friggin' attacks from the Iranians. We're going to provide you as much protection as we can. But that means we got to ratchet down our offensive. The problem was, went in with enough forces to do the offensive, but not enough the defensive mission, which is protect the straits. Because shipping is like rocks. Once they stop moving, it's really hard to get them moving again. And that's where we're at now. The mariners want to go. I mean, they're ready to roll. But the problem is the shipping companies aren't. Because I say this all the time, Chris. Shipping companies' risk is different than military risk. If I tell you guys, hey, you've got a 99% chance of success, you would take that to the bank any day of the week. You would sit there and go, that's freaking great odds. I'm going to go. I got a 99% chance. If I tell a shipping company, hey, you have a 1% chance of total destruction, they're going to sit there and go, whoa, hang on a second. That's terrible for us. It's like, we can't even risk that. It's like, we're going to sit here and hunker down because I'd rather keep my ship together and lose a month or two of traffic than potentially lose the earnings that ship's going to make me over 15 years.
I mean, that
that's
that
why
makes
I brought up
sense.
the comparison to World War II convoying earlier, because the risk tolerance was just so different then. There's no comparison between an era where you're willing to lose significant chunks of the merchant tonnage you put out there and your strategy is just build more of it, to a modern environment where the risk tolerance is extremely low. And we're in an environment now where we have, I know it's said a lot in these circles, low-cost options to inflict a lot of risk on maritime targets, whether that's USVs, whether that's one-way attack drones, whether that's the old-school threat of cruise missiles, but now aided by cheap ISR to get the observation on spot the ship, or, it's the Strait, a guy with some binocs and a radio can do the job in terms of lobbing something into the area and then having it hunt.
Perun's exactly right, because that's the big, I mean, if you look at the world wars, massive amount of money was spent in war risk. Both the British and the Americans spent huge amount of money. It was actually it actually generated revenue for the United States during World War II, the war risk. It was really it was a moneymaker for them in many ways. But the risk in the Navy is this: you have these exquisite warships like the Burkes, but Burkes are designed to deal with the flock of birds and not designed to deal with the swarm of gnats, which is what you're going to encounter when you hit it. I make this argument all the time. The Army learned the lesson of asymmetric warfare, or at least tried to learn the lesson of asymmetric warfare in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Navy hasn't, and they've been really bad about this, and they don't want to jam themselves into a 21-mile strait with a $2 billion warship and be on the back end of realizing they can't defend themselves from that swarm of gnats, which is the concern, because I think they found that very close to be what happened to them in the Red Sea. There was a couple of close instances where the Houthi got almost lucky, and I think they're worried about the Iranians here in many ways.
And if the question is, I only need to get lucky 1 in 1,000 in order to impose unacceptable risk, then denial becomes very easy. And it's why I probably have to jump on a second, so I'll close on this thought. I think it's important not to treat ground troops as an automatic win here. I'm not sure someone's drawn for me the logical link between we're going to deploy ground troops, therefore the strait is open. There's a lot of coastline to cover. Even if you control the coastline, you can't interdict the airspace over said coastlines. They can still lob things over. It's going to be porous. They're still going to be able to get observation and data in to lob the occasional munition out, or to launch a USV or a drone or a cruise missile or something. I'm not confident that just because you try and deploy a ground troop contingent that might run into the tens of thousands, you're going to control enough terrain and you're going to control it well enough to actually reduce the risk, as Sal said, not just to the Strait. These munitions also range out into the Gulf. They can range out beyond the other side of the Strait as well. There's an immense amount of territory to cover. And the fundamental problem we're dealing with is the combination of a cheap offensive option with a very expensive target in the form of a tanker or a bulk or whatever, realistically a tanker, that does not react well to being hit with something with a chunk of high explosive aboard, and it being relatively easy to get that high explosive there. The Russians do not have a good answer to the Ukrainians do it. Allied powers did not have a good answer to the Houthis doing it, and Iranian capabilities are a level up. In this case, I'd argue Iranian capabilities are still up from where the Houthis were, and the geography is more in their favor than it was for Houthi operations against traffic going through Bab el-Mandeb into the Red Sea. So it's a difficult problem, and short of occupying... Sal can probably close out once I leave, but remember how the United States closed out the tanker war. You didn't close it out by actually escorting every tanker through and restoring normal traffic and brute forcing it. You restored it by the war stopping, for getting Iran to the table and the conflict ending through a combination of defensive and offensive operations and negotiations to actually end the thing. So I'm not confident you can get pre-war traffic moving through this area as long as there is a conflict going. So war termination has to be part of the discussion there. Anyway, sorry guys, I have to leave, but thanks for inviting me over.
Thank you so much
Thanks
for
coming,
joining
man.
us.
Enjoy that free healthcare.
Take care, brother. Thanks
Thank
for
you very
joining.
much.
Hey, Chris, I got to get another bottle. I'll be right back.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Sounds good. In the meantime, so a lot of really interesting things brought up there by Perun at the end. One of the things, I think, a natural segue to my next question is about the Bab el-Mandab Strait, which is, just how catastrophic would it be if the Houthis were to decide to now, in conjunction, close off that choke point as well?
Oh, well, I mean, that throws a whole new level into it. I mean, one of the things that the Saudis have been able to do is use that pipeline that cuts across from Ras Tananur and Ad Daman over to Yanbu in the Red Sea, and they've amped that up. I mean, we're talking going from about 1 million barrels per day up to 5 million. Add some other facilities they have over there, they're pumping almost 7 million barrels per day in the tankers on the Red Sea. So, I mean, you were getting 20, you got 7 coming through there, you got about 1 million coming through Fujairah. So you're getting 8 million barrels out of the normal 20 out there. But if the Houthi rear their head again, that creates a whole new problem, because who do they target? Does this stop the flow of oil tankers through there? Because if you shut the Bab el-Mandab, then the next alternative is to send tankers around Africa from Asia through the Mediterranean, through the Suez to Yanbu. And you can't take fully loaded VLCCs, very large crude carriers. You got to do what they call Suezmax, the biggest ships to go through the Suez. And then you're basically, shuttling fuel from Yanbu to these big tankers up in the Mediterranean and sailing them around Africa. We just don't have that many tankers. I mean, that's the problem you have is you're getting 8 million barrels out, but now all of a sudden you're not getting the flow that you need. And this is the problem we're encountering. You see it right now in the Philippines, you see it in Pakistan, see it in India, and you're seeing it right about ready to hit in Australia, where the last of the oil tankers are coming in right now. Australia is going to get their last 4 oil tankers from the Middle East here soon. After that, there's none. And what we have is a bubble moving through the system. And if you cut Yanbu, if you cut the Red Sea off and the Houthi appear, that's going to cause more disruptions. And it gives, by the way, Iran control of 2 choke points, Strait of Hormuz and Yanbu, leaving Saudi Arabia, who they freaking despise, their only route out being the Suez Canal. Hopefully there's no, evergreen ship going through, or else it'll create a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's that would not be good. The only thing that I think would make sense at that point, kind of, is I think what we might see is just concessions made to Iran. If they don't have the like Perun was saying, he's not convinced, and a lot of us aren't convinced, that a 10-20,000 ground troops on the Strait or in Iran would solve the problem, essentially. So then I'm just trying to think down the logical steps of, okay, what's next then? All right, if the ground troops isn't a good solution, if that might not work, then what's the next step? And it's, you make concessions. You say, okay, we'll war terminate, and you can have your ballistic missile force. You can keep doing your nuclear research. I mean, what do you think, Sal?
Well, I'll put it to you guys, because I'm interested in your opinion, because this is what I think is the only negotiation tool the Americans have to go to the Iranians to open the strait is, we will get the Israelis to back off, because I think that's the variable right there. I don't know how you turn Israel off. That's the issue that I think Iran has to worry about. And that's maybe the only one who has leverage on Israel is the U.S. And I think that's the only, if the Iranians go, the U.S. goes to the Iran and say, okay, we'll get the Israelis back off. Do you open the straits at that point? I don't know if the U.S. would do it, but I just don't know based on the speech I just heard if the U.S. would want to even level that, because this is the Israelis' opportunity here. This is their golden opportunity to eliminate their existential threat. And so I'm interested what you guys would have to say about that, because that's a little outside my area. I do boats.
Well, Justin, what about you? Like, you were an officer. What are you thinking right now if you're part of the ground force that might have to go into, not Karg Island? I don't think Karg Island, but Hormuz Island or even Bandar Abbas and take that airfield. What are you telling your men?
I look at all that and I don't even know, because it's one thing to take those islands, but at a certain point we're just sitting ducks. Like, everything that Iran could throw at us is there, and it's an island. It's like shooting fish on a barrel at that point. And while the U.S., I can speak more on the Army side. The Army side's gotten a lot better of drones for the offense. Our counter UAS is still garbage, and I don't feel bad saying that. I've thought that for a long time, and very few people will disagree with that. And so at that point, I don't know. And when you look at like numbers of, what is it, 15,000 now in total ish, if you combine everyone together that they're wanting to send over, like, that's nothing. Like, I think people also underestimate how much personnel it requires to hold anything. You look at the coastline, that realistically, like they were saying, that's a ton of land and airspace that you'd have to control to have any hope at actual interdiction. Because in a perfect scenario, we somehow managed to completely control that entire line. And so we created a buffer zone basically where the only things they can fire into the strait are longer range, easier to detect, and theoretically easier to intercept, just because we'll have more of a heads up and hopefully get lucky in the terminal phase of something. But yeah, I don't think people understand, like, one building is like a 3-story building is going to be like sometimes 15 dudes just to hold that. That coastline has nothing but ports and cities and towns and horrible terrain, and supply lines would be an absolute nightmare because we'd either have to do it via naval or air. And the things that would threaten our supply lines from the air are mostly going to be man pads, which we can't just shoot a HARM missile off of an F-18 and be like, find the man pad. Like, that's not how they work. They just stick them in a closet somewhere, and then whenever they're like, oh, helicopter, turn it on, get a lock, go. So I think, and then also another thing to consider is that we've seen a little bit of it, right? The small FPV, very short range drones that are just hitting our bases with seeming impunity. I mean, yes, we're going to be intercepting some, and there's ways you can get around that. I don't think the Iranians are using fiber optics yet. I haven't seen that based on the footage. It's still shortwave radio. I doubt that they would switch over. You can't use fiber optic to hit an island because of the water. But if we push over closer to their forces, where it's much easier for them to get in and out of, like, not only are we having to deal with what we're dealing with now, we've opened up a huge wave of hard to detect short range munitions that we are not prepared to intercept at all. You can't fly, and Chris, you've seen it. Everyone here has seen it. The FPVs, they're short distance, handful of kilometers. Signal's going to get messed up, maybe fiber optics, all that stuff. But we're entering the lethal envelope of a lot more stuff that we're not dealing with now. And we're not ready to deal with that. Like, Chris, you and I saw it in Ukraine. Like, those things are freaking nightmares, and I don't think we're ready for that. And I think also the visibility of that, it also is a huge deterrence. I hope against. I'm not for sending troops on the ground. I'm not convinced that would solve anything unless we literally just like, all right, everyone go, we're drafting everyone, we're taking every corner of the entire country of Iran, and we're setting up a new thing and all that stuff. I think that's the only way, because this is an existential fight on Iran's part to an economic inconvenience part on ours. So our tolerance for anything is going to be much lower. Meanwhile, the Iranians are going to be willing to lose literally everything because it's an existential fight for them. It's not just, Ayatollah is not like, oh, I hope this is going to look bad on the next election. That's not as now. So I think the aspect of the motivation, the numbers required, it would take a number that the United States I don't think is ready to commit or has seen in a very long time. It would take a lot of time. We don't have the infrastructure in place right now to have an army or a military large enough that could have enough people to actually achieve that, even if you did mobilize. Like I said, I don't know if we were streaming it. I'm still in the IRR. Like, they'd be getting me. I'd be going over. They're going to get all my buddies who got med boarded out. We're all going. So if the uploads suddenly stop, you know what happened. But yeah, I don't think I to answer your question, like, bluntly, I don't know what I would tell my guys. Like, don't go out at night, because that's when the thermals are going to pop out. Don't have any overhead cover. We're about to be really miserable because we have to have zero signature of any kind whatsoever. And unfortunately, if we went on an island, it's an island. There's not a lot of places to hide. All the obvious things are going to get hit very easily, very quickly. And then all that's left is going to be a bunch of dudes sitting in essentially rubble and oil infrastructure and hiding. And at that point, how effective are we actually? Because it's very easy to get munitions in and out of the coast. Like, the way I described it is, because it's all smaller stuff, right? You can fit everything that they're throwing at those boats, minus the anti-ship missiles and some of the intermediate, larger stuff that, in my opinion, is less of a concern. Everything else that we're really worried about and we don't have a definitive answer to counter can all fit in the back of an 18-wheeler, in the back of a cargo truck. A lot of cargo trucks in port cities. It would be a huge, that alone, even if we didn't have to worry about getting shot at and IED'd and droned, would be a huge issue to face. And then I started rambling and I just lost my train of thought. Those are kind of my thoughts.
Yeah,
that's why you invite him, dude. He knows a lot more about this stuff than me.
So my theory is that if there's going to be a ground invasion, and we do keep hearing about it's just 15,000 troops, it's way too low of an amount, but I think that would be a joint forcible entry force. I think that they would just clear the way for adding more and adding more. Like, when we got into Vietnam, I think it started with like 800 dudes, and then next thing you know, you turn around, there's 500,000 cats out there. And I think that the only real way to do it would be to do something like that. You gotta basically get that foothold and then build out from there. And I 100% agree that I'm really glad you brought that up, Justin, about the UAV, counter UAV. I think it's a huge, huge concern. We definitely don't have the counter UAV capabilities. I don't even know if we have the EW, electronic warfare systems, down at the squad platoon level to stop.
We've gotten better at the EW stuff, but a lot of that stuff can be faked, or with certain munitions, like, it doesn't matter if you EW. Like, a lot of Shaheeds, it doesn't matter if you EW it, because it's given a fixed location, so it doesn't matter if you jam it. It already knows where it's going. Or if it's on an island and we're trying to shove 15,000 people on an island, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but like, when you jam GPS guided munitions, a lot of times they'll just keep circling or hit nearby. So it's not like they're going to like immediately become safe if we jam. They're not going to like just fall out of the sky. They're going to either use some kind of autonomous terminal tracking, or they're going to be hitting pre-designated targets, even if we jam GPS, which would hurt us, or GLONASS or Beidou or whatever. Choose your PNS, right? Choose your PNS. That's kind of funny.
I love it.
Yeah, that's where my brain went.
PNT.
PNT, yeah. PNT. That's what it was. Yeah.
I'm 2 bottles in and I know PNT.
Position, navigation, and timing. Oh well, you can tell what I've been thinking about the last hour and a half.
You are a Ron Jeremy impersonator, so I wouldn't.
Well, we start talking about boats in the Navy, and my brain starts to go in a certain direction.
There you go.
I was listening to Village People before this, but yeah, and then even if we seize the island, right? Like even if we just flood the island personnel, that doesn't solve any of those problems. So if we just have more targets for them to hit at that point. And so if you do a joint forcible entry, because like the whole point of a joint forcible entry is to use whatever airfield or whatever foothold you had to bring in more reinforcements. And so if we do that on an island, great. We can bring tanks onto an island. Okay, they can shoot 5 kilometers against a Shahed that can go hundreds of kilometers. Don't know about that one. It would have to be like on the actual Iran proper, and that would be hard, to put it lightly, I think. And and you can't do that with 15,000. And you certainly can't do it with the 15,000 that are there. I know certain armored units have gotten alerts, and this is open knowledge. It's not just like my buddy telling me that he got a text or something, that they're thinking about moving in, due to tanks and stuff like that. If we're doing stuff with tanks, like I doubt we're going to be flying them into an island. Like if we're activating tanks, like that's main lane fighting. We want big open spaces, and you do have some of that on the border between Iraq and Iran.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea probably would be, I believe, I might be wrong, I think there's some airfields in like Bandar Abbas, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea would be to capture those airfields just north of the Strait of Hormuz, and then maybe you fly in tanks through there, you fly in cargo through there, and then that's how you kind of quickly build up, sort of like the 173rds, sort of like their jump.
Well, and you could do it fairly quick, because there's pre-position sets in Kuwait and Qatar. I mean, one of the things when the Army got rid of their float pre-positioning, they moved a lot of stuff ashore. So you're still going to need to short haul it in to do it. The other thing I would add to this too is the variable here too is the Marines. It's when none of us are Marines in here, so which is good. I mean, we're having an adult conversation, but it's one of the things they talk about is this EABO, the Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations, and those little islands in the middle of the Strait of Hormuz, or just inside the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf, Abu Masa, Greater and Lesser Toom, which are disputed between the UAE and Iran. These are areas that they could potentially grab. I mean, if you watch what the Marines have been writing over the past couple of years, they've been talking about operating in the first island chain off the coast of China in a very similar environment to what this is. And that's a potential operation I think you could see the Marines do. This is something they can grab those islands, but it would put them within the umbrella of Iran. They would have to deal with that. It would be a nasty environment to be in, but again, they're Marines, so that may be something that they would jump at in a minute. The other thing was a few years ago, about 3 years ago, when Iran was making overtures toward the Strait, the Marines did an exercise and they practiced breaking a MEU up into small detachments and putting them on board ships, basically merchant ships, as basically armed guards, and riding them out. That may be an interesting thing that they do, because what we've seen so far with what the Iranians have been able to hit the ships with is largely aerial and surface drones. There's been a couple of missile hits, we think. Matter of fact, there was just one the other day, we think, off the coast of the UAE, this Kuwaiti tanker, the Al Salim, which got hit, looks like by a missile. It's hard to tell, but it's a pretty good puncture in the side of the ship. It was a low order detonation and detonated, but it did cause a small fire, but not a substantial one. But the Iranians seem to be using pretty low-tech drones right now. I mean, the Shaheeds are, for attacking a ship, they're not great. I mean, they really don't do substantial damage to a fully loaded vessel or even an empty vessel. And the ones we saw with the unmanned surface are really, they're a step below what the Ukrainians are using, but quite far. I mean, basically, they're what the Houthis were using. They basically have to ride them out there, drive them out there, and then it's line of sight use of the drone. So you basically have to abandon that boat, get to another boat, and drive it in. So if you've got some self-defense on board beyond basically a private contractor security team armed with a couple of FN FALs, this may be a little bit more security for you. I would not want to be doing this on board a fully loaded liquefied natural gas carrier, which we could just affectionately call the floating bomb. I don't think I really want to be on there, but that could be something too we're looking at for the Marine operations. Again, if we start talking about moving heavy units, I would expect to see some movement of some of the pre-positioning units, and then maybe even some loading out of ports in the United States, and that would trigger a lot of observation right there. You're not going to be able to do that very quietly.
Right. I think I heard some people talking about how if you one signal that something big ground operation wise is happening is if they start spinning up that capacity to move that volume. But yeah, I mean, what Justin was saying before, I agree. I have skepticism about, where this is going and how, what impact ground troops could really have. Ryan, I was wondering, and we'll wrap up shortly here. We've been going for
I haven't finished this yet.
Get over here, Ryan. I wish you could just hand it through the screen. It'll be perfect and everything like that. So
we've been going for like an hour and a half at this point. I appreciate everyone, and we'll answer some questions if you guys in chat have any questions. But Ryan, I was wondering what we heard the president speak and. Wondering what your thoughts are as far as where we're going from here. Did you get a sense sort of, or did he seem like he's doubling down on this, or just where do you think we might be headed from here?
Well, I think we're going to continue hitting TELs. That's the important thing right now, is to hit the transport erector launchers, because missiles are easy, TELs are hard, and not every missile can fit on every TEL. Right. So hitting the TELs is pretty darn important. Hitting missile manufacturing. I think Israel just destroyed one of Iran's major steelworks, at least hit one of their major steelworks. So it's preventing that capability of Iran developing a ballistic missile that could reach the United States or that could reach Europe. I think we're going to keep going at least for another 2-3 weeks until we're, like I said, when we were all talking, until we're turning big rocks into little rocks. And the scary part for me comes when we're told, all right, well, we want to keep the same up tempo. And that's when we start to make mistakes. Because, and I was just down in Florida, and I'm not going to talk about that, but the amount of up tempo, that we're at, the targets we're hitting, it is absolutely insane. Some of that is we've had some help with AI with a tool called Maven, which is an AI tool that can aggregate a lot of information in. But when the Air Force is saying, give us 2,000 targets a day to hit, sooner or later, you're like, crap, well, there's this, and you're not really sure whether this thing is a school or a bad guy building, right? And that's when you start seeing mistakes. The second thing I'm afraid of is that once we start turning big rocks into little rocks, we say, all right, well, we need to get lower. We're going to start hitting besieged checkpoints. We're going to start doing gun runs on besieged buildings or besieged vehicles. That's when we're going to see an aircraft shot down. And I think it is a miracle of God and a credit to the maintainers of the U.S. Air Force and the Navy on the fact that we haven't had a single aircraft have any sort of mechanical failure over Iran, because every single sortie we send out, and we are sending out hundreds a day, it is absolutely insane. Every single sortie we send out is another chance that we're going to have a mechanical failure, and we're going to have an aircraft crash inside of Iran. The guy ejects, and we're either going to have to go after him or they capture him. And once they capture him, they're going to parade him out on TV, and I think that's the end of things. I don't even think President Trump can survive that one. That's when we have to say we're done.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. I thought about, it is a miracle that we haven't had any aircraft shot down to enemy fire, that we've achieved air superiority.
And keyword enemy fire there.
Right. Yeah. And
the ghost of Kuwait is going hard right
now. But yeah, truly also sort of a miracle that we didn't even just have some kind of aircraft mishap and a pilot eject over Iranian territory. Great point. I do think that the longer this goes on, right, the more likely that we get to a point where there's some kind of accident like the one you're describing, Ryan. That's a really great point. We have a question here from chat, our astute and very intelligent chatters. We do have the best chatters around. They say, are Iran's mini subs still active, and can they mine the seafloor? I'll just give my bullshit thought on that, which is and Sal, I'm sure, has better thoughts on it. I think it probably Iran isn't at a point where they really want to mine the Strait of Hormuz, right? Like, it seems like I believe most of their mini subs and submarines have been destroyed at this point, but let's say they do have the capability to mine the sea, the strait there. Is it in their interest to mine it?
It's a stepping, when they do it, it's a problem, because that's a point of almost no return. That unleashes, I would argue, an issue where they would, and you get this argument too with people talking about the Strait of Hormuz is narrow, and it's like it's 2 miles. It's like it's not. It's 21 miles wide. It's huge. I mean, it's a big area to mine. It's not quite as narrow as everybody always wants to tell you it is. The shipping lane is like 2 miles.
It keeps getting shorter somehow. It keeps getting smaller every time.
4 miles if you do both ways.
Every time I hear about
it's like it's kind of sailed there. It's like it's kind of wide. It's kind of not a big problem. But if the Iranians do it, number one, again, it doesn't take any mines to create the minefield. It's just the threat, which is always the big issue. They have the ability. The problem you have is they can jump them with commercial ships. They could do it with fishing boats, with dhows. I mean, they could do it with missiles. There's a whole batch of ways that they can deploy these mines if they want to. And again, the problem you have is listen, if hunting mines is tough on land, it's worse at sea. It really is. It's a nightmare to do it, because even with the systems we have now, which are much better than the ones we had in the past, you got to deploy them, you got to get them in there, and it's a slow, laborious process to do it. But I think once the Iranians do it, it turns. There's no question then the U.S. can turn everything off. I mean, one of the things the U.S. has not done is stop Iranian tankers coming out. Again, one of the things I said the very first week is like, why are we not grabbing Iranian tankers? We're very good at grabbing Venezuelan tankers. Why don't we grab Iranian tankers? It's like, this seems to me to be better than hitting Karg Island. It's like, if the Iranians can't export their oil on tankers, it seems to be the same thing. It's like, you don't even have to hit Karg Island. You just hold them and sit there and say, I've got your 32 tankers. If you want them back, open the Strait of Hormuz. That doesn't seem to be the formula here, but the mines are always the big threat. I mean, that's again their hidden thing, because they got like, I listened to the former CENTCOM commander talk about this the other day, somewhere in the range of 6,000 to 8,000 mines. Now they got to be able to get them out there. That's the problem. And the other problem is they could have gotten them out there. We just don't know, and they haven't activated them yet, because we don't know the level of technology of some of their minefields, because they could be rigged to activate at a certain set period of time.
I would say that I am in no way a naval expert, but I know that mines today, they're not like the mines you saw in World War II with the little prongs on them hanging up from the chain. They're almost more like jellyfish. And there are some that can sit on the seafloor. And ships have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sal, they have a magnetic profile.
Yep.
They have an electrical profile. They have a noise profile. So theoretically, you could download that information into one of these jellyfish type mines, and you could say, hey, don't attack ships with these noise, magnetic, and electronic profiles, but do attack ships that aren't in the database. So you could have a minefield that is essentially open for ships that you want to be open, and a minefield that is closed for ships that aren't in the database. So I think
exactly right.
Yeah. So, I'm getting ready to join the Navy. I mean, I think I got the alcohol part down.
There's the other part we talked
great
about
on Shirley. Yeah. So, I think that we don't know the entire capability. Don't we have 3 LCSs? I know one is in theater, and I think one showed up in Indonesia or Australia or something.
There are 2 in Mongolia, right?
In Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Show up Mongolia, that'd be awesome, because that's in the middle of the
yeah, wait, yeah. Just fucking riding on horses and stuff.
Maybe they built a canal.
Yeah, the 3 LCSs have what they have is 2 remote operated, basically, mine hunters on board that they can deploy. So they can go out and basically sense them. Plus, ashore, they have what they call mine-sweeping companies. So they have vessels, they have automated, basically robotic boats that do it. Plus, the Navy doesn't want to talk about it, but they've flooded the Persian Gulf with what they call these GARCs, these remote drones. So they're out there monitoring all the time. I think they would see and monitor if even though you don't see them visually on AIS and things like that, they're out there all the time. Fifth Fleet has been really good at incorporating drone technology afloat. Task Force 59, they've been doing this a while with sail drones, these GARCs, which are these kind of basically, I think it's like about a 36 or 24-foot boat that they run out there, and just full of ISR. So they're sensing all the time. So I think it would be hard. And according to the Joint Maritime Information Center, which is part of the combined military forces, they've said there's no mines been deployed yet, and that's out of Fifth Fleet. So I tend to think that it hasn't happened yet.
I think it would be very difficult for Iran to do this under the current circumstances, especially since just sending those orders out, they'd have to do it by motorcycle, right? Because we're picking up every single signals intelligence every time they send an email. So the big scare for me are those unmanned surface vehicles. I don't know how we fight that. I really don't, unless we put Marines on the ships.
Here's another question from chat. Oh, they retracted it out of nowhere. Will the F-22 get its first interception, if not already? Said Atomic Burrito. The sad thing is, it seems like the F-22 continues to get blue-balled, and the F-35 gets its first air-to-air, but I think the F-22s are held back further. I don't think that they're, as far as I know, I don't believe they're flying over Iran, for instance. I think they're being used more as an interceptor role. So probably why they're not getting the chance to nom as much. Let me see if we got any other questions here as we wind down the stream. Please, guys, send me your questions. My chat is acting a little bit funny here, but if you have any questions for Sal, for Justin, or for Ryan Mcbeth, I don't know why I feel like I need to say both of his names when I say his name, but I do. Please, question, can't they just airdrop Liberator handguns into Iran?
Oh.
Technically, yes, they could. Theoretically, you could do that. To what degree that would be successful is questionable at best. But that would be cool. Like, fuck it, why not?
It's questionable whether it was successful during World War II.
It was successful then.
It was?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it takes. So for those of you who are listening, Justin brings up a really good point. The Liberator handgun, and yes, I have finished almost a bottle and a half of liquor, and I'm still cognizant. So when the Liberator handgun was a one-shot gun, the magazine was actually designed to you pull a bullet out and you feed it in one by one. This is a 45 caliber pistol designed to be very, very cheap. I think it was like $2 to produce it at the time during World War II. And they dropped these things all over France. And the idea was that you pick up the handgun, you walk up to a Nazi, you say, "Hey, do you have a cigarette?" And then you shoot the guy, you take his gun, and now the French resistance has a gun. I think kind of the problem in Iran is that, like the president said, supposedly 45,000 people have been killed. And that is a big limiter on whether or not you want to perform some sort of armed rebellion, right? Yeah. Because you see what happened to all your buddies. I had Iranians contact me who said that in school, kids were forced to pull up their shirts to see if they had been hit with any birdshot. Because the Iranians were shooting birdshot at protesters, not even a lot less than lethal, birdshot, right? And you can only imagine what it's like being a child or a teenager, and you were dinged with some birdshot, and you're going to school anyway, right? Because you don't want to miss school or whatever, and you're in pain, and then the IRGC comes into your school and brings you into a room one by one, lift up your shirt, we want to see if you've been injured. Like that oh my God. I don't know. Yeah.
This was a question for Sal that you touched on this earlier, but someone was asking, is it possible for a convoy system for a quick extraction? I think they're talking about if it's possible for an escort.
Yeah, I mean, you could always do a convoy system. I mean, the problem with convoy systems is this. You get a limited number of ships you can pull out. I mean, if you look at what we did in 87, 88, we were moving maybe 5, 6 ships at a time. And the European Union has been doing this down in the Red Sea. They do it with a few ships at a time, maybe 2 or 3. again, we're talking about normal traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is 138 ships a day. So I mean, it's just not really that feasible. And the question is, how much protection does those escorts have? One of the problems we've had in the U.S. Navy is a shipbuilding problem. And when I say a shipbuilding problem, is we haven't produced a small, good escort vessel to operate. The littoral combat ships were supposed to be that, but the U.S. Navy hasn't deployed any of them there, but the 3 for minesweeping. I would think this would be a good purpose to send them, but they haven't sent them. What they send is Burks, because that's what we have. We haven't been able to build a frigate. Constellation class got absolutely shit-canned. We're not going to get the new one for years. So this is, every plan, we've had plans to open the Strait of Hormuz, but it usually also deals with the allies, is bring the allies in because they have the smaller frigate type vessels, perfect for this type of close-in escorts. Now, the Gulf states do have some of these vessels that we could potentially tap into. But again, you have to start setting it up, but you're never going to be able to move the volume of ships you have. And then you have to figure out which ships do you move? Who do you move? Who gets priority here? Is it going to be ships going to Saudi Arabia, ships going to Kuwait? What registry? Who owns them? Are you going to do? You're going to escort Chinese vessels in? It raises lots of questions all of a sudden. Who benefits from this?
I'll take this question. It's how difficult is getting internet to the Iranian people? So we knew up to the lead-in to the war, when we were right about to attack Iran, what happened was we shipped in a bunch of Starlink terminals into Iran, thousands, like 7,000. The CIA was in charge of this. So fact that they shipped in 7,000 Starlink terminals, and there were already thousands there to begin with, and these Starlink terminals, if you're caught with them, you're no-go'd. You're in jail. It is not a good day. You probably do not want to be on the street with a Starlink. So very difficult to get internet into Iran, to answer that question. And then let's see if we have a quick one. Ryan, what is your drink and smoke brand, sir?
This is a CAO Brasilia 60. Right now, I am drinking Angel's Envy. I almost got this bottle finished. I'm very, very close. So that's a bottle and a half of liquor tonight. And I'm still cognizant.
How much is China going to let us mess with their oil before they get even more involved, other than just with helping with the targeting against America, which I'm not sure if they're doing that, but that's the question. I'll say first, I think that's a good question. China appears to be doing their classic do nothing strategy. They're attempting to win by doing nothing. For military people, what's the chance Delta can attack a uranium holding site and successfully hold it? I mean, we don't have really a historical precedent for that, so we don't know. I'll say this. Yes, the Venezuela raid was very successful, of course. It fucking crushed. Am I right? But people will forget all of the failed raids that have happened, and one very failed raid, the famous one that you can, well, not so famous one that you can look up right now. You type in, there was a raid in Yemen that the SEALs did right when Trump took office the first time. And this raid went horribly wrong. So for every really successful badass mission, there's also ones that fail. It's unclear if that would be successful or not. It would depend on the shaping operations beforehand. And we will get, where is our last question? Where is the one that we can cap this off on? I know you guys, well, one of them was, how long do you guys think that this, or what is, two last ones. I can't stop. You keep sending them. But what is the United States Coast Guard's role in this? And how long do you think this whole thing will last? I think it could be the song that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. I think it could easily be another 20-year war, or it could wrap up in a few weeks. But my bet is that it goes on for at least a few more months. But what is the United States Coast Guard's role here?
Sal, that's all you.
Well, Coast Guard, I mean, they had 6 small fast response cutters, 154 footers there in Bahrain, but they pulled out. They're in Singapore now, and because they kind of came out. Coast Guard is really, I mean, their specialty is shipboarding, and when I say shipboarding is yeah, you've got the SEALs and you got special forces that do it, but in particularly they understand shipping. They understand commercial shipping, and under U.S. law, you actually have to use Coast Guard, at least an element of it, when you seize a ship. I would argue they would have a bigger role if we were trying to grab the Iranian vessels, but we're not doing that right now. So I don't think the Coast Guard gets too involved in this. My fear, Chris, is we start going back to the way we treated Iraq after the 1990-91 war, and we set up a no-fly zones, and we set up these maritime inspection operations. Then you'd start doing those operations, then the Coast Guard gets a role there if they start stopping Iranian vessels, inspecting them. But that all came with UN authorization and a whole batch of other things associated with it. So I don't know. I'm with you. I'm worried that this is just the beginning. It's going to go for a while. I just don't know how much Trump can really extricate himself from this with the Israelis.
It's a great point. Yeah, the Israelis do see this as you know, in a way there has been a successful reshaping of the Middle East in a lot of ways. Like Syria fell, Iraq fell. And who else fell? I think I'm missing someone. Someone in there might have also fallen.
Hamas, Hezbollah. I mean, they've been hitting everybody and everything. It's
when
their
you're
opportunity.
When you're on a roll and when you're on fire and you're heating up and you just keep sinking it and you're swishing and swishing, it's hard. It's so hard to stop. But it looks like the Iran kerfuffle hasn't. It's a tough one. It's a challenge. It is a determined adversary, and it's very difficult to assess the enemy's will to fight a lot of times. And the IRGC is determined. They're a determined enemy. Yeah. They're not making this easy. So what I do want to say is I really appreciate all of you guys joining us today on this live stream. Please go follow Justin Taylor's YouTube channel if you haven't already. I see people asking if our failsafe channel is real or if that's just someone ripping us off. No, it's us.
It's AI videos of we just put it into ChatGPT and it generates us talking in front of a green screen. It's amazing what you can do with technology these days.
Please also follow Sal. What's going on? Which shipping? I love watching everyone here's content. Please check out Ryan Mcbeth's outstanding channel. I'm sure you already follow it. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. Thank you, gentlemen.
I finished it.
Thank you, Chris.